What's up, everyone? My name is Ethan. Welcome to Splash City. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it. So today, I wanted to talk about the series preview for the Atlanta Hawks and the Philadelphia 76ers. This is a second-round matchup over in the Eastern Conference, and this is definitely an interesting second-round series because, you would expect that the Sixers would dominate this one, given that they were the 1 seed, and the Hawks are a good team, good, not great basketball team here. But Joel Embiid's injury kind of throws a wrench into this. So we'll talk about this, kind of the matchup, how it goes, and who I expect to win. So both of these teams ended up winning in 5 games in their first round matchups. The Sixers dropped that game 4 to the Wizards there. Embiid kind of left with that injury after I think the first quarter he left. And so the Wizards were able to steal a game, but the Sixers came together and got that game 5 victory and got them out of there. Hawks, they lost that game 2 to the Knicks, but after that they were pretty dominant for the rest of the series, and it wasn't really all that close. A lot of people were kind of hoping that would be a closer series, and myself included. I was hoping that one would go 6 or 7, but the Hawks were clearly the better team. They proved that they were. Julius Randle didn't have a great series. A lot of that had to do with DeAndre Hunter's defense on him, so props to him and the entire Hawks team for stepping up really big and winning a series that a lot of people thought was going to be really close. It was a very convincing victory for the Hawks. So both of these teams are riding high, coming off those 5-game victories in the first round, feeling good about themselves, and entering this matchup here in round 2. So let's kind of talk about how this is going to look for each side. You would think, all right, well, who's going to guard Joel Embiid? Because the Sixers, obviously, Joel Embiid was an MVP caliber player this year, has had an awesome season, and is one of the most dominant centers in the entire league. So you would hope that the Hawks have somebody to match up with him. Well, good news for Atlanta is they do. Clint Capella has, been really awesome. He was also a big reason why Julius Randle got slowed down in that last series, and he was doing a really great job on Julius Randle and kind of slowing him and making sure that he was playing efficiently and protecting the rim and all that. So Capella is a good defender. We've seen that, over the course of his career. He's been a very good defender. He's also a good pick-and-roll partner for Trae Young offensively, and he does all those little things as well. But Clint Capella is going to be the guy who's going to have to limit Joel Embiid. Now, obviously, you're not going to stop him, assuming that he's healthy, right? We're just going to assume that he's healthy for the sake of this, and that he's playing at 100%. You're not going to stop him, but you can do your best to make sure that, forcing him into bad shots and making him be as inefficient as possible. And I think that Capella is one who is quite equipped to be able to do that. So if Capella's the guy who's guarding Joel Embiid, then you ask, well, who's going to guard Tobias Harris? Because he's the other offensive threat here for Philly, obviously, and he's a guy who has had a really nice postseason so far. He's really taken his game to another level as compared to last year, and he had that good game 1 against the Wizards. He scored 37 points on good efficiency. So Tobias Harris is a guy who you're going to have to watch out for, and you would assume that these wings for the Hawks are going to take turns on him, whether it's DeAndre Hunter or Cam Reddish, Gallinari, Bogdanovich. Harris is a kind of guy he's strong and he can shoot, so he can kind of get shots up over you, and he can take advantage of Gallinari and take advantage of Bogdanovich a little bit. But if you're talking about Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, they can at least do an okay job on him, kind of keeping him out of the paint, forcing him to take those tougher shots and staying with him out on the perimeter. So I feel like those two, are probably going to take turns on Harris, that being Reddish and Hunter. And I think those guys are well equipped to be able to at least keep pace with him. So we'll have to see how they do that there. And then Ben Simmons, he's not a great offensive scorer, offensive talent, as we know, because due to his lack of a jump shot. But, he can set guys up and he can get into the paint a little bit and get his points that way. So they just kind of want to try to keep him out of the paint as much as possible, not allowing him to get easy shots near the rim, making life tough on him offensively. So we'll have to see what they decide to do there. That's going to be also on Capella. Also, John Collins as well is going to have to probably deal with that a little bit. And those same wings are probably going to take turns, that being Hunter and Reddish, take turns on Ben Simmons there. And then you want to look at the other guards on this team as well. You're talking about Seth Curry, Danny Green, 2 really great shooters. Just to make sure you're not leaving those guys open, not going under screens too much, figuring out when to switch, when to not switch, when to stay with your man, stuff like that, all those little defensive quirks there. So we'll see what Nate McMillan draws up here for them, but you would assume that they would try to stay as close to Curry and Green as possible, because those 2 guys can really knock it down. Philly's got a lot of offensive talent, man. They've got a lot of guys who can hit shots, a lot of guys who can create their own shot and set others up. There's a reason they were the 1 seed, so they're a tough team to guard for sure. But Atlanta does have some pretty decent defensive personnel that they can at least attempt to slow Philly down. And then on the other side of it, you would assume that Philadelphia is going to be really focused in and locked in on Trae Young, as is the norm for whoever's playing against the Hawks. He's the superstar. He's the focal point of the offense. He makes them go. So as long as you can shut down Trae Young, take him out of the game a little bit, you're going to have a lot better chance to win. So obviously Ben Simmons is a defensive player of the year caliber. I believe he's a finalist for that award this season, and he deserves it. He's one of the best wing defenders in the league. He's really strong. He's quick. He can stay with you out on the perimeter. And so, you'd assume that they would have him on Trae Young for a little while. Also, you're going to try not to have Seth Curry because Curry is not a great defender. He's a little bit pesky, but doesn't have the most size. So you would assume that the Hawks would try to get Trae Young in that pick and roll with Curry and try to kind of exploit him that way. But you would assume that Ben Simmons would get most of those minutes guarding Trae Young. Danny Green is also a pretty good defender as well, so he can kind of stay in front of him. So we'll see what they end up doing here and how they guard Trae. But you would imagine that if you're in a situation where it's close late in the game, he's going to be the guy getting doubled. He's going to be getting tripled, forcing him to give up the ball, forcing the other Hawks players to make shots. Obviously, they have some other offensive talent as well. Capella can get to the rim. John Collins, who did not play super well against the Knicks, but we've seen him be capable of having explosive offensive games. Those other wings, like I mentioned, Reddish, Hunter, as well as Gallinari, who can shoot, and Bogdanovich, who can also really score it as well. So you're talking about, the Hawks have a lot of offensive talent as well. Similar to Philly, they've got a lot of different guys who they can go to. They're not just super limited by having Trae as their only option to score here. So Trae is the head of the snake, but you do have to also pay attention to everybody else as well. But Trae Young is going to be the guy who's going to get the most attention from them, for sure. And then let's talk about Joel Embiid's injury, because without him, I have doubts about their ability to win this series. So we'll see how healthy Embiid is. It's a minor meniscus tear, which, he can play through it, hopefully, with a couple of days of recovery. They've had, a few days off since they finished off the Wizards here. So we'll have to see just how healthy Embiid ends up being, because that's obviously a key part of this. As of me recording this, he's listed as questionable for game 1. So we'll see if he does end up getting to go out there. As you're watching this, you probably know whether or not he ends up actually playing today. But we'll have to see. He's going to go through warm-up, see if he's able to get out there. I'm not as worried about re-injury with this one as I was with Anthony Davis, just because it appears that the groin strain, the muscle things are a little bit more prone to re-injury or injuring something else. We've seen this before with a couple of other players. Whereas in the knee, obviously you are concerned about maybe messing up the meniscus a little bit further, but you're not necessarily worried about like muscle injuries in the leg, as far as I can tell. Obviously I'm not a doctor, but that's from what I've seen. You're not as worried about a re-injury or injuring something else with Embiid's injury as you were with Anthony Davis a couple of days ago. So I am optimistic that Embiid can play through this. I think he's going to want to go out there. Obviously it's the playoffs. He's going to want to give it a try, and we'll see what they end up doing. It might be in the best interest of the team to hold him out for game 1, just so he can have those couple of extra days and potentially come back for game 2 or 3. We'll have to see how they decide to manage this. A lot of it honestly depends how confident they are that they can beat the Hawks here, because the Sixers are a better team. So if they feel like they can win this series pretty easily, they might hold Embiid out because they can maybe spot a couple of games and still be able to get back in this one. So we'll see. As of right now, I'm going to assume he tries to play in game 1. We'll see if he can last through it. And hopefully he's healthy for the rest of the series, because obviously you don't ever want to see injuries in the playoffs, and you just hope that everybody's as healthy as possible. So crossing my fingers that Embiid's good to go, and then we get to see the full caliber of both of these teams. So with all this in mind, I am going to take the Sixers to win this series. I think they're the better team. They've proven it all year long. Atlanta is still young. This is their first playoff run with this group, and they're going to need to take their lumps. They were really impressive against the Knicks. I'll give them that. It was super impressive to see them go out and win that series as convincingly as they did, because I just didn't expect them to be as good as they were this year, and especially after the slow start they had this season. But now that they've had, everybody's healthy, and DeAndre Hunter's taken a really big step forward, Trae Young's had a good season, and obviously all their free agency signings like Gallinari, Bogdanovich have all really panned out for them. They've been able to to really find a groove here, and especially since the coaching change, they've been really, really solid. So I do have a lot of respect for Atlanta, and I think they're a very good team. But I think Philly's just better. They were the 1 seed for a reason, of course. They've got a lot of offensive potency. Hopefully, you know, if Embiid's healthy, I believe they're going to be able to win this series. So I'll go with Philly in 6 games. I'm going to give them a little bit of a buffer here. I think it'll take them 6 to knock the Hawks off here, just because of the uncertainty with Embiid's injury. And then, obviously, I still think the Atlanta's a good team, so they should be able to get a couple of games in their own right. So Sixers in 6 games, I think, and that'll bring them to the conference finals. I think this one could be fun, though. Atlanta's a good team, and they definitely deserve some respect. So yeah, that's about all I have on the preview for the Atlanta Hawks and the Philadelphia 76ers. Like I said at the top of the video, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, ring the bell if you want to, leave a comment letting me know who do you think is going to win this series and how many games will it go. I would love to hear your thoughts. And also, I'm uploading this like an hour before Game 1 tips off, so if you're watching this after Game 1, let me know, how some of this panned out, and what I was right about, what I was wrong about. Obviously, it's only one game, but would love to hear some feedback down there below. See how this series pans out and see if I hit the nail on the head with a couple of my points today. So yeah, with all that said, I will see you guys in the next one.